Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbeesrestaurant.com. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile. Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is the first place award winner of the 2015 New Orleans Press Club's Excellence in Journalism Award for the category of Best TV Sports Show.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. It's going to be a basketball kind of night on Inside New Orleans Sports as we talk a little hoops tonight. We'll talk about the New Orleans Pelicans and the UNO Privateers. To help us break it down, Justin Verrier of ESPN and Scott Kushner of the New Orleans Advocate. A little bit later on in the program, UNO coach Mark Slessinger will join us on the show. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. As always, thanks for coming down. Certainly appreciate it. Scott, as always, always enjoy both you guys coming on my radio show. Good to have you on the television show tonight. And tell the folks a little bit about what's going on with you, Scott. I know you cover Tulane, but primarily right now you cover the New Orleans Pelicans. Talk about the Advocate. Talk about what you're involved in.
Still printing 7 days a week, putting out a paper product like the old days. We're just covering the Pelicans as much as we can and trying to stay on top of all that and tweeting and all the news that's fit to print.
There you go. Justin, welcome to the show. First time on this program, and thank you for your time tonight. Tell the folks about ESPN and what you're doing for them.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Also printing 7 days a week, just online and some nebulous sort of internet sort of thing going on there. But been with ESPN for a little while now. First time in New Orleans, about a year, and it's been going well.
How do you like it? How do you like New Orleans?
It's great. I'm not really familiar. I'm not really settled into the humidity yet.
Yeah,
it's still a bit of an issue for me. Coming from LA after 4 years, so.
Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Because humidity's not going anywhere. That's for sure. Guys, I don't know where to start with the Pelicans. Let's talk a little bit as we're taping today. The Pelicans just defeated the Cleveland Cavaliers on Monday night. I go back to the Golden State game. I go to the Cleveland game, and I look at the effort that we saw, the energy we saw against those two teams, and I say to myself, my gosh, this is not an overly talented team, which means you should get that type of effort night after night. If they got that type of effort and that type of energy every single night, this would be a 500 team easy. This would be I'm not saying it'd be a team that would be creeping up in the top four in the West, but they would be. We wouldn't be talking about them being 10th, 9th seed. They would be an 8th seed, maybe a 7th seed at this point. I'll take you first, Scott. What are you seeing? I mean, you guys are at every single game. The difference in energy level that when they get up for the games against the contenders, and then not so much when it's just a average everyday NBA team.
Yeah, and it's an 82-game season. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to play desperate for 82 games, but that's sort of the line that Anthony Davis always uses. He always says, we got to play desperate. We got to be a desperate team. And it's like, you can't play desperate for 82 games. At some point, talent is going to take over. This is who you are at a certain level. You can play harder than most teams some nights, and you can be known as a blue-collar team and all those kinds of things. But you are not going to play up for 82 games. It's just not who you are. You need to be a more talented team or a team that takes advantage of what you do better. So a night like Monday, where they have this great effort and they're playing really hard and they go and beat the defending champions at home, that's fantastic. And that's the kind of effort that will get you to more wins.
Yes.
But you can't count on that for a whole season. It is not tenable. And they made a team this offseason. I mean, we talked about it. Free agency, They went out to get a more blue-collar team, to get a team that instead of playing maybe 50 games at that level, plays 70 games at that level, but you're still always going to have a couple bombs in there, and they still aren't quite at that point, I don't think.
Much like we saw on Friday night against Brooklyn.
Yeah, that was horrible.
Yeah.
Those 2 games most recently are really emblematic of the entire season. Definitely to the extremes where you go out and lose, have 143 points dropped on you by the Brooklyn Nets, worst team in the league. And then you go out and beat the reigning champion Cleveland Cavaliers without Anthony Davis out there. And it really shows the extremes of this season. I think that they can maybe beat any team on a given night. They could also lose to any team on a given night. And I think it speaks to what we were just talking about there. You lose guys like Ryan Anderson, lose Eric Gordon. I know they've had their struggles throughout their tenures in New Orleans, but that's a lot of offense right there, a lot of firepower around Anthony Davis, and you fall back on guys who are more gritty. And yes, the defense is much better, but where's the offense coming from on a day-to-day basis outside of Anthony Davis? And I think you've really seen that been reflected in their record.
There was a power struggle between Dell Demps and Monty Williams. Monty Williams obviously lost that power struggle. Monty Williams seemed to get the best out of his teams. He seems to be a great teacher. You saw players get better under the coaching staff that Williams brought in. I'll take you first. Critique Alvin Gentry and his staff. Talk about the staff that's here now, and we had a chance now to see them for a couple seasons. What do you think about the job that he has done here in New Orleans?
I personally believe he's actually done a better job than Monty, and I think most people would disagree with that. I believe he treats his guys like professionals. I think he is a forward-thinking NBA coach, which is he understands the pace, the space, and sort of getting into a modern level of the NBA, which if Monty Williams was still the head coach of these last 2 seasons, would they still be trying to grind out possessions and run horn sets and do all these things that were kind of backward, but took advantage a good bit of what they did have? So I understood it to a degree. But they hired a guy with the system that makes sense for Anthony Davis. They just don't have the pieces around Anthony Davis to really take full advantage of it. So you brought in a guy in a difficult situation in that he has one piece that really does fit what he wants to do, and then he has a lot of other pieces that don't remotely fit what he's trying to do. Right. He does not have that point guard. Until he gets that point guard, I just don't see how this system gets maximized, and I don't see how you can really blame the coach for that.
Right.
To that degree.
Justin, what can you add?
I would just say that it seemed like Monty Williams is the type of coach who could get you to the point they were in 2014-15, where everything really exploded for this franchise. Alvin Gentry is the type of guy that could take you over to the top, and I think it's reflected in how they hired him, and yet didn't really make any roster changes in order to do anything differently. It was really, they thought they could bring Alvin in, maybe have a little bit more health success on the health side of things, and that would be it. They could take a next step. And then things kind of changed on Alvin. He didn't have the sort of team that he had thought he had coming into the situation. Everyone was hurt last year, and this year they're kind of dealing with a lot of guys who aren't offensive threats, guys who don't really play into his system. He's really kind of trying to make the most out of not a lot. And so I think it's really been reflected there. So I really don't know how to evaluate him because he really has never coached the team that he thought he would.
Yeah, guys, I think he gets too much criticism because of what is happening in the front office, and they kind of lump them both together. Yeah. I think there was an affinity for Monty Williams, and I think that's also a problem when people look at Alvin Gentry. I'm talking about the fans here in New Orleans. What about that, Justin? Normally, when you build a franchise, you build it around your superstar. But if you bring a coach in with a specific system, as Demps did with Gentry, you usually give him the tools to make that system work. There's a disconnect there, much like there was a disconnect between Monty Williams and Dell Demps on what he wanted to be able to make his system run. There seems to be that same disconnect with Alvin Gentry and Dell Demps on what he needs to make his system run.
Yeah, and I think Omer Asik is really the clear beacon, shining example of that sort of potential disconnect there. I think from Dell's point of view, you go out and you want to bring everything back, and you don't want to lose Omer for just nothing. They were really capped out in that 2015 summer. They really didn't have much to do, so they just decided to bring everybody back and just hope that that was the sort of team that they could move forward with, bring those guys back after having another big year. And I think you've seen that sort of short-term thinking affect the franchise just overall. Obviously, everyone got hurt the next year, and then you get to the point where this summer, all those guys are coming up for second contracts, pretty much. Ryan and Eric were this summer, and now you have Drew and Tyreek. And so That sort of short-term thinking, it made sense at the time, but I think you've seen the repercussions of it. And as a result, you have to lean back on guys that maybe don't really necessarily do what Alvin is best at.
What can you add?
It's very clear that they have a team that they thought was going to be the run and gun up tempo, and that's how they were going to win. And then if only Monty Williams had unleashed the shackles of that 2014-15 team, and instead of a 45-win team, they thought they had a 55-win team. They didn't have a 55-win team. There was a gross misjudgment of that group and what they could and could not do. And I think Alvin Gentry mentioned it 4 or 5 times when he got here, of taking the Ferrari out of the garage, which was Anthony Davis is the Ferrari, and they're playing this up-tempo, grinding out 20 seconds on the shot clock every time. Take him out of the garage. You didn't have any wheels for him to run on, though. I mean, this was where you were. You did not have that up-tempo point guard. Drew Holiday is a good point guard. He is not Steve Nash. He is not Chris Paul. He is not Stephen Curry. And that system does not work as well with a point guard like that. And we talked about the Omer Asik thing. That's in part because Anthony Davis didn't want to play center. And it's also because the amount of money they had to give him, they were negotiating against themselves. They were negotiating because they were the only guy they could get because of those bird rights was Omer Asik. And so then they just stuck themselves with this huge bill negotiating against themselves for a guy who would never have gotten that much money anywhere else. And it's really hurt them and it's really crippled them. And them not playing a center these last few weeks, honestly, is just it's so glaring of the problems that they've created on themselves. I mean, is there another team in the league that's benching, like healthy scratching this many guys or this much money?
No, and to Scott's point there, I really think that Anthony Davis hasn't been better than he is right now, and that's a product of Alvin Gentry. But I wonder if the team as a whole isn't worse than when Alvin got here.
Right. You mentioned Omer Asik. You mentioned Alexis Agenza. $33.7 million left on that deal with Agenza. You've got $10.6 over $2 million over 2 years for Agenza, and $33.7 over 3 years for Agenza. That's $44.3 million wrapped up into 2 guys that can't get off the end of the bench. I mean, when you look at your needs, when you look at what you need to add pieces to the puzzle here, maybe having the opportunity to go out and get another solid free agent or that can come in and help. There's your money. That's where your money's tied up right there.
And they've done a nice job in adding 2 pieces that are worth way more than minimum contracts, which has helped minimize that hurt a little bit. But that's going to really hit them again this offseason because those 2 guys in minimum contracts are not coming back for that much money. Terrence Jones is going to sign a big deal somewhere. You proved last night in the right situation he is way more than a minimum contract player. And Donatas Motiejunas, what did he get offered? Like $37 million by Brooklyn? He's going to go somewhere. So they're not bringing – so unless they can find 2 more scrap heap guys who can play at that level, which seems like long odds, all of a sudden that is going to hit you again. And so it's not hurting as bad right now as it maybe should, but it's really going to come up big time in July.
Jones getting about $1 million this year, $650,000 for Motiejunas. Bargains. I mean, to be able to find those 2 guys and to bring him in, Motiejunas within the season, and then Jones, what he's been able to contribute, that's amazing to bring him in, but you're renting them for a year.
Absolutely. I think it really kind of speaks to what a unique style player Anthony Davis is. So he is this amazing, versatile guy who's as big as a center but has the skills of a guard or a wing. But at the same time, it almost presents roster problems that, considering how the steps that they've made already, really hurts them down the line, because if you want to be more flexible, you can't really do that because you don't really have those pieces. So if they want to go play small, you're looking at a guy like Terrence Jones. Well, he doesn't really stretch the floor enough in order to be a stretch 4 and play that up-tempo system. So you got to go with a guy like Solomon Hill or Dante Cunningham. Well, those guys aren't great shooters. Maybe they don't provide the sides in order to protect Anthony Davis down low, and then your rebounding is thrown off. So it's a lot of mixed and matched parts. And I don't know if they really have any answers. And you look at Anthony Davis, as good as he is, and that's a good problem to have, he presents some problems that they really haven't been able to solve. And the roster moves that they've made haven't helped.
Right. Guys, what do you do with the $44.3 million? How do you divest yourselves of a Jensen who looks like he might be a little bit easier to move? The contract is not that bad at around $3 million a year. But the Asik contract, forget about it. I mean, what's in the future? What do they do here to alleviate themselves of this salary cap burden?
I think Ajinça could get moved. Justin and I have a slight disagreement on that. I believe that he can get thrown in, whether they make a deal for Drew Holiday, whether they make a deal for Tyreek Evans, something like that. I think he could be a piece that fits. His salary is enough that he could come in for another expiring contract on a different end, something like that. I think you could make that work. Omar Ashik, the only way I see him getting moved is, one, you give him a first-round pick, which I can't imagine they're going to give up another first-round pick to get rid of him. Or you have to stretch him in the offseason using the provision that the CBA allows, which hurts your cap still, but it minimizes it slightly. But he's really a dead anchor contract that they have saddled themselves with. But I think you can see movement. I don't know if you'll have both those guys back on the roster next year, but it's possible. And considering their healthy scratches, that is unbelievable.
Right. Justin, what's your take on both and the ability to be able to move on from them?
Well, I just don't think they're helping their ability to be able to be traded because they're not playing. And there's no way to add value to a situation that's already bad if you're not going to go out there and show otherwise. I think it was a good move to sit those guys on the bench to play the way they are, and you've seen the difference with this team. They've at times been the best defense in the league while playing small ball. The offense isn't that much better, but it is better, and they've shown a little bit more flexibility on that end. I just don't know what you can really get from that at that point, which is why Scott brings up the stretch provision. I think at this point you might be better off just kind of walking away and minimizing the damage, because really I don't know what you're going to get from these guys.
Can you use the stretch on both or just one per season?
I believe you can use them both if you really wanted to, but I mean that would really kill your cap.
That's killing your cap. And then let's throw Quincy Pondexter in there as well. Right. 1 year left, $3.8 million, has been able to play. I mean, what's his future? Yeah,
and that's a question that's out there for everybody. I mean, they said that we'd have an update on exactly how long that last surgery would take, and there has been no update on exactly how long he's going to be out from the latest surgery, which was a surprise surgery.
Yes.
They thought he'd be back sometime either late December or early January. That's not the case. You could miss the rest of the season. That'd be 2 full seasons missed. I don't think that's happened since Grant Hill. I mean, that somebody has had to miss 2 complete seasons. He didn't get hurt in the playoffs previous year. He played all the way through, had surgery, and has never been able to get that right. It is unbelievable. And at some point, you just look at sunk cost and that theory and say, where do you move on? Where do you not move on? Where do you think, look, I've invested so much in these guys that I've got to play them and I've got to do something with this? And where do you kind of cut bait? And that's really the question for them.
Do you have a take on Quincy Pondexter, what his future is?
It just seems to be up in the air at this point. We've asked to speak to Quincy just to see how he's even handling the situation, what he really sees for himself going forward. But it does look like we're in the sort of territory where maybe this might be it for him. I don't want to speculate on stuff like that, but it could be that. I mean, you missed 2 seasons. Yes. It's not looking good. The only, I guess, saving grace would be that he isn't getting paid all that much money. So it isn't like an Omer contract where it is across the bear. Guys,
team's been stake bitten. I mean, you go out and get your core. Your core is Anderson and Gordon and Holiday and Evans, and they're the guys that are surrounding Anthony Davis. Davis had his problem with injuries. I'm going to get into that in a little while. But you look at those other 4. Their time in New Orleans, they've been saddled with injuries off the court. It seems more than on the court.
Yeah, it's the level of things that have happened, and they, Justin wrote a fantastic piece on the medical staff last year, which is really good, and you can get into all that. But there are things that have nothing to do with the medical staff, like Drew Holiday missing the first dozen games this year as the team goes 0-8 and then 1-10, that have nothing to do. I mean, just sincerely bad luck. And I don't know where any of this really comes from or where you piece it together. And could any franchise have been able to overcome this stuff?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, I don't think anybody can overcome this, and particularly as flawed as we've said some of the pieces are next to each other, when you combine all that stuff, it's really no surprise that even with Anthony Davis, they've struggled the way they have.
Justin, I want to get into that medical staff thing. It's something I've been talking about for a few years on this program, my radio show, between what's going on with the New Orleans Saints and the significant injuries they've had. Guys that have been injured, going back, getting multiple surgeries on the same injury. You wonder about the diagnosis. You wonder about the medical staff that is handling both the Pelicans and the Saints. The same can be said for the Pelicans as well. I know there's a deal with Osher. There's a great big sponsorship deal there, and that has some that weighs in on this sum. I'm here long enough to remember when Tulane was handling the medical stuff for the Saints. We didn't see this kind of stuff. You wrote about it. Give us you critique that medical staff, and has that been part of the problem here with these guys, or it just bad luck for the franchise?
I think it's a little both. I think people sometimes misinterpret the story that I wrote, that they're out there like applying leeches to guys. It's not medieval times out there. It isn't that bad. I've seen the facility. I've seen all their set up there, and it's not that. I think what I would look to is that their staff just isn't as big and expansive as some of these others across the league. They don't have the sort of money that a team like Philadelphia has. Doesn't have the revenue of a team like the Los Angeles Lakers. So they really can't just overwhelm that sort of situation with resources to do so. So they're doing the best that they can, but at the same time, there's not one person in the organization, or there wasn't up until this season, in charge of maybe being at the forefront of some of these things. And I look at this device called Catapult, which helps monitor a load on a player. And they didn't get that until last year. The Spurs had that maybe a few years ago, definitely before them on that front. And you look at an injury like the one that Drew Holiday had. It was a load-based injury where he had the stress fracture to begin with that cut his first season with the Pelicans down short. He comes back the next year, he's playing regular minutes. Well, that's not the best approach with that sort of injury. And if they had the Catapult at that time, perhaps they would have been able to manage that differently. Their head trainer, Dwayne Brooks, kind of admitted that. And to a certain extent, it's human error. People are going to make mistakes, like in any job. But you do wonder if there were certain steps to take in order to maybe prevent that. And, I think they're doing a good job. I think they've made steps to correct it now. I think Jason Summerlin, their strength and conditioning coach, is a guy on the cutting edge. He's really a smart, bright, young guy, and I think that's the type of guy that they need. But, where was that move last year? Where was that move 2 years ago? And I think you can't just erase the past, and you still feel those repercussions from a few years ago. Great
point. Guys, Pelicans are going to have to make a decision very soon. Tyreke Evans has come back. He's played well coming off the bench. He's rounded into shape. He gives the Pelicans a quality option off the bench. If you want, depending on matchups, he can be in your finishing five. He is a matchup nightmare for both teams because of his ability to get to the rim. The question is, does he fit what Gentry wants to do? How much would he cost if they wanted to retain him? And then you've mentioned Drew Holiday a couple times tonight. A guy that is looked at as one of the better on-the-ball defenders in the NBA. He can get his shot. He's got a great vision in terms of the floor. He can pass the basketball, but maybe he doesn't fit the system they're trying to play now. You gave up multiple lottery picks for Drew Holiday, and of course the situation bringing in Evans as well. You made that mistake last year in letting Gordon and Anderson get away for nothing. That is a mortal sin in the NBA. You can't do that. You cannot allow guys that you're not going to re-sign that have value on the market to get away for nothing. But yet that happened. Even draft choices at this point for a team that could use draft choices to either make trades, to stockpile players, whatever at that point. I'll take you first, Scott. What do you think happens with Holiday? What do you think happens with Evans? Are they going to be re-signed? Are they part of the future of this team? Or is this going to be a deal where it's self-preservation for Dell Demps and Alvin Gentry, and they try to hold on to these guys and try to eke into that 8th seed?
I think they certainly want that 8th seed. I don't think there's any doubt they want that 8th seed, and they probably want it more than the average franchise that is in their position, which is they're all aware there. You talk to everybody in there. They're aware they're not a very good team right now. There's no, they're not walking around thinking that there's some great team that just happens to have a poor record. They know they're flawed. Now, at the same time, they understand from a self-preservation perspective and that's anybody at any job, that if you're going to get another year or really guarantee themselves another year, they have to make the postseason this year. And that 8th seed is floating out there as something to sit out there for them to get, which in a lot of years, I think last year at this time, they were about the same record, and they were way out of it.
Yes.
It was pretty much over. They're not in that position now. They can chase it. They can get in the playoffs. That is significant for this franchise and this market at this time. For a lot of places, that's not really true. It is true here. And it's true for Dell Demps and Alvin Gentry. So I think the next couple of weeks are going to tell the tale and how close they are to that 8th spot, or if they're in it when the trade deadline actually hits. Maybe more than it should, but it's just reality the way where they are right now.
Yeah, I think if you talk to anybody within that organization, they realize that a draft pick in this upcoming draft, which is supposed to be stockpiled with frontline talent, the type of guy that you could put next to Anthony Davis and potentially have a winner 5 years from now that would be the sort of team that New Orleans has always wanted around Anthony Davis. But the problem is, how do you do that while also ensuring that you're going to be back in order to have that draft pick? And so they kind of put themselves into a situation where they need to go out and chase it. And maybe Drew isn't the perfect guy to bring them in the future to be next to Anthony Davis. I would think he'd be more of a third, fourth option on a very good team. But I don't know what else they do at that point. I mean, like you mentioned, you go out and give 2 draft picks away from him, and now you're in a sort of situation, again, sunk costs. We keep talking about sunk costs. And if they go into this offseason and they lose Drew Holiday, and let's say they make the playoffs and they don't have that lottery pick, I think that is an absolute disaster, but it's a very real possibility for this franchise.
And what do you do with Drew Holiday coming up on free agency?
Yes.
What on earth do you make of $20 million Drew Holiday?
Right.
This team is a 500 team with Drew Holiday. But are they a 10 games or 20 games under 500 team without Drew Holiday? And you replace him for who's on the market next year? Ray Felton. Yeah. I mean, there's some pretty mediocre point guards you could fill into that spot. If you lose Drew, you've lost that money, and you're not going to get a high-priced free agent to come in here and take over that spot. And they're really at a crossroads as to what to do. But I mean, Dell set it up last year. He said he does not think that expiring contracts mean as much in the NBA today as they did before because the cap escalates. Right. He set it up. Right. He said it over and over again last year.
But do you guys buy that?
To a degree.
I mean, but can you let guys that you know have value go with no compensation when you are cash strapped, when you don't have a tremendous amount of talent? I mean, you think you got to get something for them.
Right, and obviously this past summer was the best example of that.
Yes.
Losing Eric Gordon, Ryan Anderson for nothing. They had some options at the trade deadline, decided not to go with those because maybe the draft pick was too far down the line, that it wasn't tangible. They couldn't really see it and paying off in the immediate. And it really, I mean, I think they felt the repercussions of that. I mean, I just look at it, when you go into this offseason, if you lose Drew, what else do you get? Because this franchise, I mean, I'm enjoying my time in New Orleans. It doesn't seem like NBA players are just dying to get down here, especially because there hasn't been a winning sort of culture or situation for them to go and look and say, hey, if I just go down there, we can just roll out and I'll make money from us winning games.
Yeah.
But they don't have either things in their advantage. So what really do they have to offer other guys?
And again, it's always a domino effect with anything you do. You talk about Tyreek Evans coming here, you give up Robin Lopez. I think you gave up Vasquez with that as well. Yes. You've been searching for a center since then.
And a wing.
And a wing, okay? So, I mean, are you going one step forward, take a 2 step backwards on a lot of the deals that Dell Demps has been involved in? What about Tyreek Evans? Does he fit? Is he coming back? Would it be in their best interest to try to get something for him at the trade deadline, considering he's playing pretty well right now?
Yeah.
He would help a contender.
He would, and I think there are systems that fit him a lot better than this particular system fits him, in that he is a ball-dominant guard who doesn't necessarily like to kick it around. He doesn't necessarily like to play up-tempo, and there are several franchises where he might fit better than he does in New Orleans, and he could have value for them. I don't know how they bring him back. I mean, maybe if the timing works out, they know they can't sign Drew. They have some money to give to Tyreek. But, I mean, I don't see how it works out that you can bring both of them back. Drew is certainly a higher priority for them. If they can get any, I mean, the problem in the offseason, they would have traded him. The problem in the offseason was nobody knew if he could play.
Right, exactly.
He had 3 knee surgeries.
Right, sure.
But he's shown that he can overcome that, and he has been able to play. And that's going to be a major part of what it looks like in February is, are they close to that 8 seed? And if they're not, then they deal him. And if not, if they are in it, I think he stays.
Yeah, and I think there's still a big question of what type of player Tyreek Evans is going forward. I mean, you look at the last game, he had such success, but in that win, even in that great win against the Cleveland Cavaliers, there are a few plays he was making that looked like old Tyreek from last year, where you're just wondering, what is he doing out there? And
3 possessions, no passes, you like that?
Yeah, that is the bad Tyreek that Alvin Gentry just not want to see. And, I think there's a possibility they might even try to trade him before the season is out, because I don't know how much longer they can count on him to not only be that guy, but to stay healthy. This guy had 3 knee surgeries. on the same knee in the span of 9 months. And there were signs based on what their medical staff told me that although he didn't have surgeries on that knee before, there were signs that there could have been complications leading into that.
Wow.
And so you just don't know what you're getting from him, and I think it's a clear sign of that when leading into this game against Oklahoma City, Tyreek has a left ankle sprain, and he's questionable for that game. So you really don't know what you have.
I asked you this question on Friday. I want to bring this up here tonight on tonight's show. Eachwan Moore, Solomon Hill, Langston Galloway. You mentioned blue collar. First, I'd like you guys to critique those three guys and what they brought to the franchise. And then I want to kind of morph in the rumor of Harrison Barnes wanting to come to New Orleans, or at least an interest with the Pelicans in Harrison Barnes and him not automatically dismissing it. Yeah. And where would this team be with a Harrison Barnes next to an Anthony Davis as opposed to a Hill, Galloway, and Moore?
I believe they wouldn't be a top 10 defense. That gets overlooked, I think, a lot of the time. Solomon Hill did not score until the last minute of that game last night, and he had a really good game. And they gave him 122 points. I mean, that's just who he is sometimes. He's not going to fill up a stat sheet. Is he worth the money that he's getting paid? It'd be very hard to find a statistical measure to say yes.
I'm with you.
It'd be very hard to find that. But I think a lot of guys in that free agent class, you're going to sort of see that. Eachwan Moore has been a nice piece off the bench. I think he's probably getting paid about what he deserves.
I would agree with that.
I think that was a nice addition. He's another big reason they're a top 10 defense. Langston Galloway has been a bit of a revelation.
Oh, yeah.
He's been hitting shots.
Right.
He's been helpful for them in moments where they cannot find offense. He has carried them through a lot of fourth quarters. I see all three of those moves, and I understand the reasoning behind it. When you take them all together, do you trade 3 quarters for $1? And I don't know. That's probably not. You probably would prefer to just have a star, to put next to a star, and then you at least have a foundation. You can build it from there.
Right.
But I do get the justification of those three guys.
Your thoughts?
Right. I think the difference is you look at what you need now versus what you need in a broad sense in order to take the next step. What this team needs is a difference maker next to Anthony Davis. I don't think anybody would dispute that. I think Drew is a nice piece, but he's definitely not the guy that's going to take them to the next level. Harrison Barnes, maybe he would have been that guy. I'm not really sure. He has his certain deficiencies. Definitely after that playoff series with the Golden State Warriors, didn't really seem like that type of guy, but the Dallas Mavericks have really brought the best out of him. But the Pelicans
They also have a great coach.
They have a great coach, yes.
They do.
The Pelicans really just needed bodies. They needed guys just to get by through this season. And really what they ended up doing, just because of the way the cap rose and how much money you had to spend in order to just get average level guys, they ended up paying a premium just to get bodies in there, just to get guys that weren't net negatives. And I think that's the reason why you've seen them going to small ball most recently, is that you get those negatives like Alexi Ajinza, like Omer Asik off the court, and you just have guys that could just do enough to get by and let Anthony Davis be amazing. As we've seen, like, it's not going to take them to the next step, but at the very least, they're in that race for the playoff seed.
Can they contend? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I think it's undoubtable that this past offseason was way better than the continuity-filled one the year before.
Amen to that.
I mean, at least they went out and saw there were problems.
Right.
The blindness of not seeing problems and saying, we just switched the coach, bring all the players back, I think is really the more debilitating offseason of the two.
But you're also rolling the dice that with more minutes that these guys, that they would produce more.
Yes.
And in some cases they have, but overall they have not. I mean, Solomon Hill's not... He's not the guy they thought that was going to be hitting threes in the playoffs. He's not that guy. He's a grinder.
Yes.
And again, same could be said for Moore. And Galloway was a guy that didn't turn the ball over. He was a guy that you could count on to protect the basketball. A heady guy, good point guard. I don't think they realized that he could shoot the three like he's been able to shoot it. I think that's been a surprise.
Right, and I think you look at the start of this season, when Drew Holiday wasn't there, when Tyreek Evans was there, they really had to rely on those guys to be type of players that they really aren't. Even Alvin Gentry at some point just said that. Listen, we have guys playing in roles that they really shouldn't be in. And I think the positive of that is there still is some upside. They're not older guys.
Right.
They're in their mid-20s. They still have room to grow. Solomon Hill really hasn't been able to show what type of player he is in this league. I think it's doubtful at this point that he could be a sort of impact offensive player that they really need, especially at his cap charge. But going forward, I mean, they really these guys are role players, guys that fill out the roster.
Well, I tell you what, Anthony Davis, it truly is manna from heaven, okay? I mean, you lose Chris Paul, who is a first ballot Hall of Famer. You fall into the lottery. You end up with Anthony Davis, who's another first ballot Hall of Famer, the way he's playing right now, MVP-type numbers. Only knock maybe you can have about him is maybe his frailty. I don't want to say injury prone, but little nicks seem to be able to keep him out where some players would play through it. But with that said, he's putting up incredible numbers. What he does for the team when he's on the floor means probably more to this team than any other player means to their team in the league. He says he's still committed to New Orleans. He wants to be here. How long can the fan base, how long can management count on that type of loyalty to the franchise in the city?
Until his contract comes up. I mean, that's what he's here. He's not going anywhere.
We saw Chris Paul push his way out now.
Yeah, and Chris Paul also, like I said, when there's about a year left.
Yes.
That's when the contract starts becoming an issue. For right now, he's not going to say anything. He's not going to do anything. He's involved in a lot of the conversations with them. They are very aware that he is the most important thing in that building. You know, it's Tom Benson and Anthony Davis when it comes to the Pelicans side. I mean, he's way more important than anybody else that's there. I think he's good right now. I mean, I don't think he's itching to get out. I think he's perfectly fine. If this lasts, if they can't take a step in 3 years, yeah, he's going to go. He's going to push for a trade. That's what everybody in the history of the league has done. Now, it's a little bit different. You can probably speak to it better. The difference in the contract situation now in the new CBA, the Pelicans will be able to offer him a lot more money than any other team where, you know, for the history of the league, people have always left in his circumstance. And now I think you're going to start seeing more guys sign.
What about AD?
Right, yeah, I think that's going to be the biggest thing. I don't think you're going to see as many players, frontline players, sort of move to different teams. Already DeMarcus Cousins, regardless of what's happened in Sacramento, and that has been a circus since the day he got there, it already seems like he's going to be willing to come back to Sacramento, again, because of the amount of money that they can throw at him that no other team can. And so it's going to be a big decision for AD. I think if he does leave, I think then that's going to be some pretty damning evidence for this franchise that he just does not see a future here, just because he's going to have to turn down a lot of money in order to go somewhere else and do so. And the one thing I always look back on is, yes, Anthony Davis is saying all the right things right now, but I don't really put much stock in it one way or another. Even if he didn't like his situation, he was saying that he's 23 years old. And who at 23 years old had anything interesting to say in general? I know I didn't.
Right.
So let's talk to this guy when he is 27 or maybe even 26 to see where his priorities line up, because 3 years from now, 2 years from now, they're going to be way different than they are right now.
Right. Well, let's hope, but he's 27, he's still in a Pelican uniform.
There you go.
I mean, that's the one thing that people in New Orleans are going to be holding. The people that truly care about the Pelicans. Yeah. And that's what we're going to talk about when we come back from our break. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports each and every Thursday night right here on WLAE with our live broadcast at 6 p.m. Fridays at 10 p.m. with our rebroadcast right here on WLAE. And, of course, 9 o'clock on Pelican Sports Television. That is every Friday night. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Justin Verrier of ESPN. Also, Scott Kushner, the Advocate, is our guest. Mark Slessinger, coach of UNO basketball, will be with us a little bit later on in the program. Quick break. We'll be right back.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Amco Fence, locally owned and operated since 1976. Fully licensed and insured and a member of the BBB, Amco serves both residential and commercial customers. If you're looking to repair, replace, or install a fence for security or aesthetic reasons, Amco Fence supplies wooden, metal, chain link, vinyl, and ornamental or automatic gates. Amco aims to satisfy your fencing needs. Amco Fence, 504-468-9559 or AmcoFenceCompany.com.
TikTok Cafe, located on Causeway South at the I-10 in Metairie, is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Our menu offers breakfast dishes like our Western omelet made from scratch biscuits, grits, egg sunny side up, and lunch specials like our homemade cheeseburgers with a side of golden brown fries. Don't forget about our weekday lunch special, and that every Tuesday is steak night. TikTok Cafe, open 24/7 at Causeway South at the I-10 in Metairie.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. We're talking Pelicans basketball. A little bit later on the program, we'll talk about the UNO Privateers doing pretty good this season as well. Guys, what about Buddy Hield? What about Cheek Diallo? Hield has made great strides since the beginning of the season. Your thoughts on Hield, why he's playing so well, and I'll ask you the same question, Justin, and then kind of morph into Diallo. Is he going to be a guy that can play in the NBA?
If you watch Cheikh Diallo in the workouts, practices, whatever it might be, and you talk to people around that building, they really like him. I mean, they really do. And you see it in flashes. I think in a couple games he's played toward the end and actually had some nice moments. But they really think he has a tremendous upside, I think is the buzzword that you use there, is tremendous upside. And Dale Demps loved him from when he was in high school. He does do a lot of things well. He is remarkably raw as a player, considering his background. When it comes to Buddy Hield, the shooting struggles early were surprising, but you did expect them to sort out the struggles he's having now, which he's shooting the ball great.
Yes.
But for him to become more than just a shooter, this is really where the rubber hits the road of his career, which is he gets to the rim and gets swatted a lot and does not draw contact.
Is that lack of strength, guys, something he's got to do over time and build the strength up?
I'm not sure what it is. If it's technique, if it's strength, if it's just ability, I don't know. But that will be the next phase. And he can be a good spot-up shooter and be a nice NBA player. But in order to be a real impact, he's going to have to do more.
I think it just speaks to potentially, you look at him as a 4-year college player. He wasn't the type of just frontline athlete, basketball player like a Jamal Murray, the name that they could have kind of gone out there and get. And those guys are going to be compared for a very, very long time going forward. But I think you look at maybe that being kind of some of his issues at the rim there. I think what we're seeing from Buddy is exactly what we expected from Buddy. He can go out there, he can stretch the floor, hit some threes. The fans love him. He could be a face for this franchise outside of Anthony Davis, Drew Holiday, a nice big smile you could put out there that the fans are going to really love. But I think this, like Scott said, this is going to be really where we figure out who Buddy is going forward. The next 2 years, he really needs to show that he can do a little bit more than just shoot it up there like he did in Oklahoma. I'd like to see him to play a little bit more defense, to be more of a playmaker, because this team really needs something else next to Anthony Davis, and right now they really don't have that.
What about Diallo? What do you think his future is?
I think it was a great move to go out and, when you go with Buddy Hield, to go out and do the complete opposite with Cheikh Diallo. If you've got the sure thing veteran guy who can get in there right away, now you got this project that you could work on. And as we've been saying before, there's so many complications with who do you play with Anthony Davis in that front court. Well, a guy like Cheikh Diallo is, in the ideal sense, in what he can become, that's it. He's a guy who could stretch the floor a little bit next to Davis. Or he can go in there, be a rebounder, run the floor with him. He's like Donatas Motiejunas, but way younger and potentially more upside.
Right. Guys, I feel like right now the casual basketball fan, the casual NBA fan doesn't care anymore. They've lost that fan for right now. They got to lure that fan back, okay? You got the hardcore. They're going to be there night after night. They're going to watch them on the road. But the casual fan that you need to fill that arena is not paying attention anymore. I think a lot of it has to do with lack of faith in the front office. I think the Benson management group treats this team like an NFL team. They look at this as the NFL, how do they deal with the NFL? With the patience, with the slow pace, more of a deliberate way to be able to build the team. That's not what you do in the NBA. If it's not working, you blow it up, and you can quickly get back into the mix. Different salary cap structures, different formula for building a consistent winner. They're different leagues. Critique this front office. I think that the fan base has lost faith. What do you guys think? And is this our do or die, as I think it is, for Dell Demps this year?
It probably is the fork in the road for Dell Demps and Alvin Gentry this year. But my critique of the franchise goes higher than that, which is there needs to be someone in that top level of management who wakes up every day and their number one priority is the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yes.
It is really hard to run an NFL franchise. It is way harder to run an NFL and an NBA franchise. I don't know why they have insisted on having everyone do both.
Multitasking between both.
Going from the ticket guy and the marketing guy to the general manager and the president of the organization. You can have layers, I understand that, but someone in an executive role needs to be NBA only, and somebody should also be NFL only. I think we've seen the Saints deteriorate since they bought the Pelicans, and I think we've seen the Pelicans deteriorate since they joined with the Saints. And that is a management issue. It all runs down from the top, which is you can't have guys doing multiple responsibilities. These jobs are too big. They're Mickey Loomis should not be in charge of an NBA team.
Right.
That is a really difficult job to be an NFL GM.
And they're so different in the structures, everything that has to happen with the franchise. That's the last question of the day. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the horses are doing really well there, and that's the other one you got
there you
to
go.
throw in there.
Team 3.
Yeah, but I completely agree with Scott. I just wonder, what does this team want to be around Anthony Davis? You have the one building block that every franchise in the NBA wants. You have a transformative guy in his prime of his career. And what are you going to do with him? Are you going to go out there and try to just make the playoffs, or do you want to be a title contender like the Golden State Warriors, a team where you got Alvin Gentry from? It remains to be seen at this point.
Guys, I'm not going to ask you if they're going to make the playoffs. That's not fair. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you guys back later on in the season, and we'll talk more about where they are and what the future of the franchise is. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. Really, really great panel tonight on Inside New Orleans. Again, that is Scott Kushner and Justin Verrier doing a great job covering the New Orleans Pelicans. We're going to take a quick break. We'll do something a little different on the program tonight. UNO coach Mark Slessinger joins us next on Inside New Orleans. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Want to thank Justin Verrier and Scott Kushner for joining us on the program, talking a little bit about the Pelicans. We do something a little bit new tonight since we're taping. Good friend of mine and a guy that's done a great job at the University of New Orleans and truly loves this city. Mark Slessinger joins us, head coach at UNO. Mark, welcome to the show. First of all, congratulations on your early success. And 11-7, 6-1 in the conference, first place. Got to feel pretty good.
It's been a long process, and it's been a very, very rewarding one. And to be able to get to this point that we're at in the year, it's a marathon. The league race is a marathon.
I looked at your schedule today. It still is a marathon.
It still is a marathon. We got a long, long way to go, but I like being at the head of the pack. And you can't win unless you're at the head at some point. So I'd much rather be at the front. I like being the hunted for a while instead of hunting all the time. I think our team has really gelled and enjoyed the process of getting to this point. And it's rewarding to know that we talked about it being a renaissance several years ago of UNO athletics after all that we'd been through post-Katrina, and I think that people are starting to see that it's coming to fruition.
You've had early success this season. How have you kept these guys grounded?
Well, every day we go back to the process. We talk about the process, and it's a day-to-day battle. You have to win the day, and we still do the same drills we did a year ago. We still do the same fundamental drills, and maybe it's the Indiana basketball pedigree in me that you still got to dribble, pivot, and pass every day. And so we're going and we do the same fundamental drills. But I think you keep adding in pieces of it through film. Every day the film doesn't lie. You go and you talk about the things that aren't working, fix them, educate the guys, and try to be as honest with them as you can. I think guys, they want somebody that's honest with them. Good or bad, they want to know where they stand. And I think that we've had a lot of success of approaching it that way. It's built a lot of trust and cohesiveness within the group. And I think it's kept them hungry to improve and still chase that perfect game that may or may not come.
When you look at everything the university's gone through in terms of the financial difficulties of the state, the uncertainty of tops, you look at where this athletic program was. It was in flux. Didn't even know they were going to stay Division I. We're moving from division to division. You walked into a firestorm. Talk about how you've rebuilt this program.
Well, I've had a tremendous amount of support from not only our athletic administration but our university administration that values UNO athletics as a very vital piece of student life within our university. I think our alumni base and our Alumni Association also recognizes it as a great way to stir interest and to keep people involved with it. But we've had a great base of support within our internal organization. And I think that once we were able to do that, we were able to get on solid footing. Dr. Foss made a very bold move as our president at the time to keep us Division I. It wasn't the most popular in some realms, but I think people see the payoff that it's in. I wouldn't be sitting at this desk today if that decision wasn't made, and I think it puts us in conversations that we wouldn't have been in. And he always said, if you're going to be elite university, you need to be elite in everything. And Dr. Nickel, our current president, has taken it another step, and I've got great support from Mr. Derek Morrell, our athletic director.
What does Coach Mark Slessinger look for in a player that's going to play at the University of New Orleans?
Well, they have to be a student athlete, number one. Anybody in the city that's 42,000 alumni in this metro area, and all of them can tell you better get ready to go to school when you go to UNO, and you better be locked in, and you better be ready to work. It's a blue collar school for a blue collar city, and you better be ready to get educated. And I think guys that come to school at our place have to want to go get a great education, which they're going to receive. They have to have good character to be able to survive and move forward in our program. And they got to love playing. They got to love playing. They got to want to be a part of a great team. I think our team, when people meet our team, we had an alumnus at the Little Rock from Little Rock that had moved after Katrina, and she commented she said, "Your guys have the New Orleans spirit." She said every kid that came out to the bus greeted us with a handshake. They hugged us. They just were warm and genuine. And I think that's one thing, that they're great character. They love being around each other.
Yes.
And I think all those things the basketball piece is easy, but you have to find the right personality pieces that fit and mesh together in order to make a championship level team.
From an athletic standpoint, from a basketball standpoint, what are you looking for in athletes that come to UNO?
Number one, they got to have a great skill set. And it doesn't have to be a broad skill set, but they got to have some specific things that bring it to it. I think in modern day basketball, playing hard is a skill. It's not a given anymore. Sure. I think hustle, determination, all those are skills. Talking is a skill that goes along with dribble, passing, defending, all those things. So you try it's a puzzle, and you try to fit the pieces together to where they're going to mesh while projecting guys that may be a step lower that you think can be a high major player that sometimes you can develop or go, an Irvin Johnson type of guy, like Coach Floyd had.
We'll talk about this year's team and put a spotlight on some of the players on your team that are really helping you be first place in the Southland Conference right now.
Everything starts with our core group of seniors. We got four seniors. 3 of them have been with us 4 years. Christavius Gill is over 1,000-point scorer from Alexandria, Louisiana. Nate Fry is from Houma Christian, right down the road in Houma, and is as dynamic a guard as there is. And Tevin Burrell's from Gaucher, right on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. And all 3 of those guys have guys that have big energy, big buy-in, and have made huge sacrifices to put us at a championship level. And then we added in a year ago Eric Thomas, who was a state junior college player of the year from Baton Rouge Community College, currently leads the Southern Conference at scoring at 20 a game, and has done just an amazing job of integrating with the team. And then we got some great juniors with McCour Poe, a junior college All-American, and Traven Thibodeau, a kid from Bruley, Louisiana, up by Baton Rouge, who is actually he had a triple-double. He's our center and is actually 4th in the league in assists right now. But just a dynamic passer and a talented playmaker.
I've told you this personally. I've told you this when we've been on the air on the radio show. I have so much respect for you as a coach. To take a program that had some flaws and to try to build that program back up, but also that mentality that I think New Orleans loves. I'll take you on anywhere, anytime, doesn't matter who you are. If people want to really be enlightened about UNO basketball, go look at their schedule this year and where they have gone. Talk about this year's schedule. Well,
just in the non-conference, we did a 3-game road trip to start the year where we played at Oklahoma State, at the University of Tulsa, and then flew and played at Southern Cal. In that road trip alone, we talked about it with our team that it would be a great educational process. And we talked about that it exposed some cracks in our foundation. And I think that trip brought us together. It fixed some stuff immediately that we had to fix, that we thought we had right, that we didn't. Coaches and players both. We went and played Northwestern in the Big Ten. We're going to go play. We've played Indiana, Michigan State over the past few years. Yes. We're not going to shy away. And I think in the big picture, if your goal is to make the NCAA tournament, you have to put guys in that opportunity if you think you're going to win games. And our goal is not just to make it, but our goal is to make it, win games, and advance. And if we have not put them against those people head to head, they don't have the confidence, they don't have the experiences to go do it. Utah State was a great trip for us this year. We had a quick turnaround. We lost a heartbreaking game at home against Lafayette, got on the plane the next morning and flew to Utah, played at Elevation, lost at the buzzer. But the guys came back from that with a renewed resolve, and they had a team meeting that, hey, these are the things that we're going to give up as far as I'm going to give up shooting some shots that I was shooting before. A good shot to take a great shot. I think when you look at it from that Utah State game forward, our whole team has changed. And I think the balance of what we're doing has taken off, and guys have been so unselfish and played so hard for the good of the group.
And you've gone to the Northwest as well, right?
Correct. Yeah. So we won at Washington State this year.
Big win.
Led all 40 minutes. We led against Tulane here, wire to wire. Put another 40 minutes leading wire to wire at Washington State. So 2 huge wins for us there within 3-day period.
Talk about your conference, Southland Conference. Southeastern seems to have a pretty good team this year as well. You guys are getting a lot of publicity, and rightly so, because again, the fortunes have turned around at University of New Orleans. But talk about some of the other guys, other teams you're going to be seeing in this tournament as you get to the tournament, and you still got a lot of season left here.
Our natural rivals are great. Within this league, one great thing about being in the Southern Conference is we've got natural rivals within an hour. So Southeastern, we're going to play twice. Who's got 2 losses right on our heels. Jay Ladner's done a great job up there. They got a really, really good team. Nichols is on a resurgence and doing a great job. We got them twice still. We have McNeese twice this Thursday at home with that game. And then we have Northwestern still. So we've got great natural rivals. Sam Houston's right behind us with 2 losses. That's our lone loss was to them at the buzzer.
Yes.
And then Lamar also has 2 losses, a team that we beat at Lamar and only played once. So the league is loaded. It's a great basketball league. There's a variety of styles that you're going to see every night, from slow down to run and gun press. Great coaches, great athlete, extremely great speed in our league. We're one of the bigger teams in our league, but there's a ton of speed in that league that people can come out and they're going to see a great game every night.
That's my next question.
Yep.
You're putting a great product on the floor now. There's no reason to ignore UNO basketball anymore. As I've told you, hey, give me a reason to talk about you. I want to talk about you. You've given us a reason to talk about you. We got UNO graduates that live in this city. We've got obviously New Orleanians that love basketball, some that are out there. I know some of them are watching the pro game. How do you get people back out to the New Orleans arena? Probably the best place in the state to be able to watch a basketball game.
Well, you get 610 to Franklin.
There you go.
Is the quickest route. Or you can take Elysian Fields, either one.
I think people know where it's at, but how do we get them there?
You get right to Lakefront Arena. Lakefront Arena is arguably the best basketball facility in our state and in the South. There's not a better place to watch a game. You're going to get out and see an extremely exciting team, a blue-collar team just like our city, that plays very, very hard. They have a workman's-like mentality, and they have a ton of fun playing. And I'm generally pretty entertaining. I try not to act too much a fool, but I'm generally pretty entertaining. And you're gonna see great fan promotions. Our staff's done a tremendous job with it. And it's a great brand of basketball. It's a very affordable, easy way to get it. UNOprivateers.com. Check the schedule, and you can see it anytime. And you're missing out if you miss these student athletes in what they're doing. It's a special, special group of guys that are playing this year with this team.
Well, you're a special, special guy and a special coach, and I know of your love for this city as well. You may not be New Orleans born, but you are New Orleans certified.
I appreciate that.
There's no doubt about that. And Coach, I wish you nothing but the great success left in the season. We need a local team in the NCAAs, and everybody's pulling for the UNO Privateers.
Thank you so much.
Good luck to you, Coach. Good luck to your team.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE-TV at 10 p.m. You can also catch us on Pelican Sports Television. That is 9 o'clock on Pelican Sports Television. That's every Friday night. Don't forget you can catch me on the radio, 990 AM WGSO. That's 11 to 1 weekdays. The TuneIn Radio app is a great way to take the show with you anywhere. It's a free download for your smartphone or tablet. You can also listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. And don't forget all the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports. If you missed any of them, you can catch them at ericasher.com as well. Also, want to thank our guest tonight. Great panel tonight as well. Justin Verrier of ESPN, Scott Kushner of the New Orleans Advocate, and of course the great coach of the UNO Privateers, Mark Slessinger. Also to the WLE production staff, Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, also Kenny Juno, Naila Jones, Richard King, Philip Williamson, and my director, William Hill. Thanks so much for watching this edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. My name is Eric Asher. We'll see you right back here next Thursday night for another edition. Have a great week. Until then, we'll see you soon.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is the first place award winner of the 2015 New Orleans Press Club's Excellence in Journalism Award for the category of Best TV Sports Show.